In an alternate Star Wars universe, the events on Mortis take a drastically different turn. Instead of defeating the Son and ultimately leaving Mortis with a renewed understanding of his destiny, Anakin Skywalker faces a temptation too powerful to resist. Seeing the visions of his dark future and realizing the depth of his fears, Anakin aligns himself with the Son, embracing the promise of power to prevent the tragedies he fears most. This decision leads them to escape Mortis together, setting the stage for a galaxy reshaped by the union of the Chosen One and the embodiment of the dark side. As Anakin and the Son leave Mortis, a sinister alliance forms between them, one that threatens to disrupt the delicate balance of the Force across the galaxy. The Son, representing the pure, unfiltered essence of the dark side, sees in Anakin the potential to bring about a new era, one where he can finally break free from the constraints his father placed upon him and wield his power over the galaxy. Anakin, for his part, sees in the Son a chance to gain the power necessary to protect those he loves, an opportunity to shape his fate without fear of loss or failure. Once outside Mortis, Anakin and the Son are confronted with the reality of their power. Anakin, now fully embracing his potential, begins to feel the influence of the dark side as never before. The Son's influence amplifies Anakin's connection to the dark side, fueling his emotions and granting him abilities he had only begun to explore. Their arrival in the galaxy is marked by a palpable shift in the Force, a disturbance felt by Jedi and Sith alike. The Jedi sense an unsettling darkness, something beyond even the Sith, while figures like Darth Sidious recognize a threat that could undermine their own ambitions. Anakin's alignment with the Son disrupts his relationships, particularly with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ahsoka Tano. Returning from Mortis with the Son by his side, Anakin finds himself at odds with his former allies, who immediately sense the darkness that now clouds his presence. Obi-Wan, who has always been a mentor and friend to Anakin, is devastated by this transformation. He realizes that the man he once regarded as a brother is now aligned with an ancient and powerful darkness that could destroy the Republic. Ahsoka too feels the shift, sensing that her former master has been irrevocably changed. Their bond, once unbreakable, now hangs by a thread as Anakin's descent into darkness becomes clear. With the Son's guidance, Anakin begins to explore the full extent of his powers, delving into the mysteries of the dark side that the Jedi had forbidden. The Son teaches Anakin how to harness his anger, his fear, and his ambition, showing him that the Force is more than the Jedi's teachings had allowed. This partnership leads Anakin to unlock abilities that make him a force unlike any the galaxy has ever seen. He no longer relies on the constraints of Jedi discipline, instead channeling his raw emotions to amplify his connection to the Force, making him a formidable adversary. The Sith, particularly Darth Sidious, are immediately aware of this new alliance between Anakin and the Son. Sidious, who had been carefully grooming Anakin as his apprentice, now sees a rival that threatens his plans for the galaxy. The Son's presence disrupts the careful balance of power Sidious had maintained, as he realizes that he may no longer be the most powerful wielder of the dark side. Sidious is faced with a dilemma: attempt to manipulate Anakin and the Son to his advantage or confront them as a new enemy. Knowing the Son's nature as an embodiment of pure darkness, Sidious recognizes the danger of an alliance between himself and the Son. Yet the threat to his own power drives him to seek control over this powerful new force. The Jedi Council, meanwhile, finds itself in turmoil. The disturbance in the Force is too great to ignore, and they sense that Anakin, the Chosen One, has fallen into darkness. Yoda, Mace Windu, and the other Council members realize that the balance of the Force is under threat, not only from the Sith but from a darkness more ancient and powerful than they had foreseen. The Council is divided on how to respond. Some believe that Anakin can still be saved, while others fear that his alliance with the Son makes him irredeemable. This internal conflict weakens the Jedi Order, leaving them vulnerable to the growing darkness that Anakin and the Son represent. Anakin, now fully under the influence of the Son, begins to view the Jedi as obstacles to his vision of peace. With the Son's encouragement, he sees their teachings as narrow-minded, incapable of understanding the true potential of the Force. Anakin becomes a figure of wrath and power, embodying both his Jedi training and the limitless power the Son has shown him. His vision of peace is twisted by the Son's influence, turning into a quest for dominance and control. Anakin believes that by ruling the galaxy he can bring order and prevent the chaos he once feared. In his mind, this is the only way to protect those he loves, even if it means betraying everything he once stood for. With Anakin and the Son united, a new era of darkness looms over the galaxy. Their combined powers create a ripple effect, one that shifts the balance of power in unexpected ways. The Jedi Order, weakened by internal strife and the threat of the Sith, finds itself facing an unprecedented challenge. Sidious, too, recognizes the danger posed by this alliance, understanding that his own ambitions for a Sith Empire are now threatened by an alliance more powerful than he could have anticipated. The galaxy, already on the brink of war, is thrust into a new conflict, one where the boundaries between light and dark blur, and the fate of the Force hangs in the balance. As Anakin and the Son's alliance strengthens, their influence on the galaxy grows, reshaping the war between the Republic and the Separatists. The Son, with his ancient understanding of the dark side, instructs Anakin on how to manipulate not only his power but also the minds and wills of others. Together, they begin to use the Force to disrupt the Republic's military operations, destabilizing systems with subtle manipulations, covert actions, and even assassinations of key Jedi and political leaders. Their strategy isn't just to win battles but to instill fear, pushing the galaxy closer to submission under their combined rule. Anakin, under the Son's tutelage, begins to forsake his identity as a Jedi entirely. He adopts a new persona, becoming a force of wrath and power known simply as the Dark Knight of Mortis. His presence alone strikes terror into the hearts of those who once looked to the Jedi for hope. Anakin's former allies find themselves unable to reconcile the hero they knew with the fearsome figure now sweeping across the galaxy. News of Anakin's transformation spreads, demoralizing the Jedi Order and intensifying the conflict as rumors of a dark Jedi wreaking havoc reach both Republic and Separatist forces. With his new title, Anakin moves swiftly through the galaxy, targeting those who oppose his vision for peace. Guided by the Son, he sees the galaxy's complexity in a different light, one in which only his power can bring true order. As he deepens his understanding of the dark side, Anakin no longer struggles with doubts about his choices. He believes wholeheartedly that he is fulfilling his destiny as the Chosen One, bringing peace by force where negotiation and compromise have failed. His inner conflict, once a defining part of his journey, now gives way to a chilling certainty in his actions. The Jedi Council grows increasingly concerned about Anakin's influence. Yoda, Mace Windu, and Obi-Wan grapple with the reality that the Chosen One, whom they believed would bring balance to the Force, has now allied with an ancient, malevolent entity. The Council, torn by fear and uncertainty, debates how to confront this new threat. Yoda, sensing that traditional Jedi teachings may no longer be enough, proposes seeking knowledge from ancient sources of the Force, hoping that the past might hold the key to countering this powerful darkness. Obi-Wan, still struggling to accept the loss of his closest friend, volunteers to confront Anakin, determined to bring him back from the brink or stop him. As Obi-Wan embarks on this mission, he is haunted by memories of his friendship with Anakin and the bond they shared as brothers in arms. But upon finding Anakin now fully committed to his dark path, Obi-Wan realizes the man he once knew is gone. Their reunion quickly escalates into a confrontation, with Anakin dismissing Obi-Wan's pleas and warnings as relics of the past. Anakin accuses the Jedi of being narrow-minded and unworthy of understanding the true nature of the Force. His rhetoric echoes the Son's influence, casting the Jedi as self-righteous gatekeepers, blinded by their own traditions. Their duel becomes an intense clash, a desperate attempt by Obi-Wan to reason with Anakin while confronting the unstoppable power that Anakin now wields. The battle pushes Obi-Wan to his limits as he realizes that his former apprentice has become more powerful and ruthless than he could have ever imagined. Anakin's mastery of the dark side, amplified by the Son's teachings, allows him to harness raw energy that Obi-Wan can barely withstand. Ultimately, Obi-Wan is forced to retreat, unable to save Anakin but vowing to protect the galaxy from the threat he now poses. Meanwhile, the Sith are aware of this rising force, and Darth Sidious finds himself in an unexpected dilemma. Recognizing the Son's ancient power and Anakin's strength, Sidious realizes that this alliance could topple his own plans. However, he also sees an opportunity. If he can manipulate the situation to his advantage, Sidious believes he might still maintain control over the galaxy. But as Sidious tries to reach out to Anakin, hoping to sway him back, he finds his former apprentice beyond persuasion. Anakin no longer needs the promises of the Sith. He sees the dark side as a path to his own vision of order, one free from the manipulations of Sith or Jedi alike. The galaxy descends into a chaotic power struggle, with the Jedi Order weakened, the Sith threatened, and the Republic's systems destabilized by Anakin's relentless campaign. The Son, relishing the turmoil, encourages Anakin to push further, to tear down the institutions that have failed to maintain peace and impose his will on the galaxy. With each victory, Anakin's identity as the Dark Knight of Mortis becomes further solidified, his legend spreading as a conqueror who embodies the unstoppable might of the Force. Ahsoka, devastated by the news of her former master's transformation, decides to confront Anakin herself. Though no longer a part of the Jedi Order, she feels a sense of duty to save the man who once guided and protected her. When she finally finds him, however, she's confronted by a man she barely recognizes, a figure consumed by power and devoid of the compassion he once showed her. Their confrontation is emotional and fierce, with Ahsoka pleading for Anakin to remember his former self. But Anakin, now fully entrenched in the darkness, rebuffs her attempts, insisting that he has transcended his former limitations and found a true purpose. Their clash is marked by sorrow and loss, as Ahsoka realizes that the man she once admired has been replaced by a dark force that views her compassion as weakness. Though she fights valiantly, she is ultimately outmatched, left with no choice but to flee. This encounter leaves Ahsoka heartbroken, but it strengthens her resolve to fight against the darkness that Anakin now represents. She realizes that the galaxy's future may now depend on stopping the man who was once its greatest hope. As the galaxy spirals deeper into conflict, the Son sees his vision coming to life. The ancient being revels in the chaos, knowing that his influence over Anakin has given him the power to reshape the galaxy in darkness. But even the Son, an embodiment of the dark side, is not without his own vulnerabilities. His bond with Anakin, while powerful, is also tenuous. As Anakin's ambition grows, so does his own sense of independence. The Son begins to sense that his apprentice may eventually see him as an obstacle, a limitation to his ultimate vision. This realization marks the beginning of a subtle power struggle, as Anakin and the Son each begin to question the extent of their alliance. The Jedi, now scattered and struggling to regroup, attempt to find a way to counter the growing threat of Anakin and the Son. Yoda, searching for ancient wisdom, uncovers fragments of old Jedi teachings that speak of the Mortis gods and their connection to the Force's deepest mysteries. With this newfound knowledge, Yoda and the Jedi Council prepare for one last stand, hoping to use the ancient secrets of the Force to confront the darkness that has taken hold of their former comrade. As Anakin and the Son tighten their grip on the galaxy, the stage is set for a final confrontation, one that will determine the future of the Force and the fate of the galaxy. The alliance between Anakin and the Son, once forged in shared ambition, is now strained by competing desires for power and control. In this alternate Star Wars universe, the fate of the galaxy is caught between the ancient chaotic power of the Son and the relentless, uncompromising will of the man who was once destined to bring balance to the Force. As Anakin and the Son continue their dark reign across the galaxy, their alliance begins to fracture. Anakin's ambition grows beyond simply conquering. He wants to reshape the galaxy according to his vision, one that enforces order and peace, albeit through his rule. The Son, however, thrives on chaos and wants nothing more than to see the galaxy fall into a spiral of darkness and destruction. This fundamental difference in their goals strains their partnership, setting the stage for an inevitable confrontation between two titans of the dark side. Anakin's former allies continue to resist his new order, with the scattered Jedi and remnants of the Republic fighting desperately to preserve what remains of freedom in the galaxy. The Jedi, led by Yoda, begin to regroup on isolated planets, seeking refuge while they strategize on how to counter Anakin's power. Yoda, understanding the depths of Anakin's descent and the ancient darkness that now fuels him, realizes that the Jedi can no longer rely on their traditional teachings alone. They must adapt, finding ways to confront the darkness not just with lightsabers but with knowledge of the Force that goes beyond their previous understanding. Ahsoka, devastated by her encounter with Anakin yet undeterred, takes it upon herself to gather allies. She reaches out to Jedi sympathizers, exiled warriors, and even former separatists who are disillusioned by the new terror sweeping across the galaxy. Though her task is daunting, Ahsoka's courage and determination inspire others to join her cause, forming a resistance force determined to challenge Anakin's dominion. She becomes a rallying symbol of hope, a force standing against the darkness Anakin and the Son have unleashed. Meanwhile, Darth Sidious realizes he cannot stand idly by while Anakin and the Son threaten to usurp his power. Recognizing that his position as Sith Lord is under threat, Sidious begins to devise a plan to pit Anakin and the Son against each other. He knows that the sun, while immensely powerful, is susceptible to pride and jealousy. Sidious uses his influence within the shadows to subtly sow seeds of distrust, whispering rumors of Anakin's true ambitions to the sun through those loyal to the Sith. Sidious's goal is simple: weaken them both and reclaim control over the dark side. As these tensions grow, Anakin finds himself at a crossroads. The sun's teachings have given him immense power, but he is beginning to resent the chaotic influence the sun encourages. Anakin's desire for order is incompatible with the sun's desire for destruction. Fueled by his ambition, Anakin starts to consider eliminating the sun as a final step in his journey to absolute power. He believes that by doing so, he can rid himself of the chaotic elements that prevent him from achieving his true vision. The sun, too, senses this shift in Anakin's loyalty. He sees his former ally beginning to outgrow their alliance, a disturbing prospect for an entity that has always thrived on control. The sun realizes that Anakin's loyalty was never fully to him, but to his own vision of peace and dominance. Feeling the threat of betrayal, the sun confronts Anakin, leading to a fierce clash between master and apprentice. This confrontation is not merely a duel, but a battle of ideologies: Anakin's desire for order against the sun's love for chaos. Their battle is intense, their force powers colliding with a fury that shakes the foundations of planets. During this battle, the sun tries to manipulate Anakin by showing him visions of the suffering he will bring if he continues down this path. But Anakin, now hardened and resolute, dismisses these warnings, convinced that he alone can bring peace. The sun realizes he can no longer control Anakin and, for the first time, fears the depth of his apprentice's power and determination. The sun's visions and warnings do little to dissuade Anakin, who now sees the sun as an obstacle, one that must be eliminated to fulfill his destiny. Their duel escalates, tearing through the very fabric of the Force. Both combatants draw on their immense power, clashing with Force energy that distorts reality itself. The Jedi, scattered across the galaxy, feel this disturbance acutely. Yoda, sensing that the final battle between Anakin and the sun is near, gathers what remains of the Jedi Order. He knows this battle will have profound consequences for the galaxy, and he prepares his remaining forces for the fallout, ready to bring whatever resistance they can against whoever emerges victorious. As their duel reaches its climax, Anakin taps into a level of power beyond anything the sun anticipated. Fueled by his anger, his ambition, and his desire to see his vision realized, Anakin manages to overwhelm the sun in an explosive surge of Force energy. With one final, devastating strike, he vanquishes the sun, claiming his place as the galaxy's most powerful wielder of the dark side. Yet in his moment of victory, Anakin feels an unsettling emptiness, the realization that even this conquest has not given him the peace he sought. The death of the sun sends a shockwave through the Force, a disruption that resonates across the galaxy. Those sensitive to the Force, both Jedi and Sith, sense this monumental shift as the balance between light and dark is violently upended. Anakin stands alone, victorious but isolated, left to rule a galaxy that now cowers under his power. He has defeated the sun, but in doing so, he has embraced the very darkness he once sought to control. He realizes that his quest for order has made him the embodiment of the very chaos he despised. With the sun gone, Anakin consolidates his power, becoming an unchallenged force in the galaxy. His rule is marked by a cold, authoritarian order, one that enforces peace through fear and absolute control. Yet he is not free from resistance. Ahsoka, along with the surviving Jedi and other allies, remains determined to fight back. They launch a campaign of covert strikes and guerrilla warfare, doing everything they can to undermine Anakin's rule. Obi-Wan, devastated by Anakin's fall yet unwilling to give up, joins Ahsoka's resistance. Together, they seek to protect what remains of freedom in the galaxy, hoping to ignite a spark of rebellion against the dark regime Anakin has imposed. Obi-Wan's heart is heavy with sorrow for his fallen friend, but he knows that his duty now lies in preserving the remnants of hope, no matter how slim they may be. Anakin's rule is absolute, but he is haunted by visions of the destruction he has wrought. The sun's influence lingers, a reminder of the path Anakin chose and the consequences of his ambition. Despite his victories, he finds himself unable to escape the darkness that now defines him. His mind is plagued by doubts and regrets, as he realizes that the peace he sought has come at a terrible cost. In his quest to protect the galaxy, he has become the very monster he once swore to destroy. Meanwhile, the Jedi's surviving members, under Yoda's guidance, delve deeper into ancient Jedi teachings, hoping to find a way to counter Anakin's overwhelming power. They discover hints of the Mortis gods and their connection to the Force's primal nature, realizing that Anakin's bond with the Son has fundamentally altered the balance of the Force. With this knowledge, Yoda and the Jedi formulate a plan to confront Anakin, aiming to restore balance by severing the darkness that now binds him. As Anakin's rule tightens, the galaxy becomes a battleground of ideologies, with forces of hope and resistance striving to overcome an overwhelming darkness. Anakin, burdened by the weight of his own actions and haunted by the Son's lingering influence, stands as a solitary figure, a ruler without peace, a conqueror without satisfaction. The once heroic Jedi has become a symbol of fear, his reign casting a shadow across the stars. In this alternate universe, the legacy of Mortis is twisted, leaving the galaxy forever changed. The journey of Anakin Skywalker, once the Chosen One, becomes a cautionary tale of ambition, power, and the consuming nature of the dark side. His alliance with the Son, though brief, unleashed forces that reshaped the galaxy and left an indelible mark on the Force itself. The struggle for balance continues, but in this timeline, the galaxy's fate remains uncertain, with darkness reigning and only a glimmer of light left to challenge its rule. With Anakin's rule solidified, the galaxy experiences an era unlike any before, a reign of rigid order enforced through fear, yet punctuated by unrelenting resistance from those who once knew him as a hero. Under the banner of the Dark Knight of Mortis, Anakin governs with absolute authority, pushing his vision of peace onto a galaxy too shattered and divided to resist openly. Planets across the galaxy fall in line, intimidated by the stories of Anakin's power and haunted by the mysterious forces that now seem to surround him. The galaxy's population lives in a tense calm, knowing that any rebellion will be met with merciless retribution. Anakin, however, remains plagued by inner conflict. The Son's lingering influence affects him in ways he cannot fully comprehend, casting shadows over his thoughts and dreams. Despite his victory, he is haunted by the vision of a galaxy spiraling into chaos, a fate he fought to prevent. These visions, remnants of the Son's power, create cracks in Anakin's resolve, forcing him to confront the reality that peace obtained through fear is fragile. He realizes that despite his immense power, true peace remains elusive, slipping further from his grasp the more he tries to control it. Ahsoka and Obi-Wan, having become leaders of the Resistance, rally what remains of the Jedi and sympathetic allies. They strike carefully, using guerrilla tactics to weaken Anakin's grip on key systems while evading his powerful forces. Their goal is no longer just to survive, but to restore hope to the galaxy and inspire others to fight back. Through small victories, they begin to chip away at Anakin's regime, sowing seeds of dissent among his forces. Ahsoka's leadership becomes a beacon for those who resist, her defiance of the dark side a symbol of resilience and strength. Meanwhile, the Jedi delve further into their ancient teachings, hoping to find knowledge that might counteract Anakin's power. They learn of Force techniques that involve balancing light and dark energies, methods once used by early Jedi to mediate between the two sides of the Force. Yoda and other Jedi masters undergo rigorous training, seeking to deepen their connection to the Force in ways that go beyond traditional teachings. This pursuit of balance within themselves becomes a form of preparation, a final stand against the darkness they know they must face. Darth Sidious, aware of the Jedi's efforts, watches from the shadows. He has not abandoned his ambitions and sees this turmoil as an opportunity to reclaim his influence. Realizing that Anakin's isolation could make him vulnerable, Sidious quietly begins manipulating events to destabilize Anakin's rule. He subtly encourages factions within Anakin's ranks to challenge his authority, exploiting the growing resentment among those who chafe under Anakin's oppressive rule. Sidious's aim is to weaken Anakin from within, hoping to retake his place as the galaxy's ultimate ruler. Anakin, now feeling the pressure from all sides, grows increasingly paranoid. He realizes that his greatest enemy may not be the Jedi or the scattered rebellion, but the unrest within his own empire. Even the faintest hint of dissent is met with ruthless action, as Anakin tightens his control and cracks down on suspected traitors. His actions only fuel the resistance as more and more people turn against his brutal regime. The fear that once kept the galaxy subdued begins to shift, with whispers of rebellion spreading from planet to planet. In his solitude, Anakin begins to confront the remnants of his past self. Memories of his life as a Jedi, his love for Padme, and his friendships with Obi-Wan and Ahsoka haunt him. The contrast between who he once was and what he has become becomes a source of inner turmoil, forcing him to question whether his path has truly brought the peace he sought. These moments of self-reflection offer fleeting glimpses of the Anakin that once aspired to protect the galaxy, but the sun's influence overpowers these sentiments, pulling him back into the darkness he has embraced. Despite the sun's death, his spirit seems to linger in Anakin's mind, a haunting presence that whispers of inevitable decay and destruction. The sun's lingering influence warps Anakin's perceptions, heightening his distrust and deepening his paranoia. This mental conflict intensifies, turning Anakin's rule into a reign of fear, not only for the galaxy but for himself. He is caught in a vicious cycle, enforcing peace through violence, while realizing that true stability is slipping further from his grasp. Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and the remaining Jedi realize that they cannot defeat Anakin through sheer force. Instead, they turn to the ancient Jedi techniques they have been studying, preparing to confront him not as warriors, but as seekers of balance. They understand that Anakin's power is rooted in an imbalance of the Force, and their only hope lies in restoring harmony within the Force itself. Yoda devises a plan to confront Anakin in a final battle, one where they will use these ancient techniques to try and break the hold that the sun's influence still has on him. In a climactic showdown, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and the remaining Jedi face Anakin in a battle unlike any they've fought before. This confrontation takes place on an abandoned planet, chosen deliberately for its isolation and strong connection to the Force. Anakin, sensing the approach of his former allies, prepares for their arrival, his mind divided between a need to destroy the Resistance and the faint, painful memories of his past connection to them. The confrontation is intense, with the Jedi using their newfound techniques to counter Anakin's overwhelming power. They channel the Force not as an instrument of aggression, but as a force of balance, seeking to neutralize Anakin's darkness rather than destroy him. Ahsoka reaches out to her former master, trying to remind him of who he once was, hoping to reach the Anakin she knew. Obi-Wan, too, appeals to the bond they once shared, his words filled with sorrow and a desperate plea for redemption. Anakin's response is fierce, but as the battle intensifies, he begins to waver. The combined efforts of the Jedi disrupt his connection to the dark side, weakening the influence the sun had left within him. For a moment, Anakin's former self breaks through, and he is overwhelmed with remorse. He realizes the enormity of the destruction he has caused and the friends he has betrayed. In this brief moment of clarity, he sees the galaxy as it could have been a vision of hope and peace that he abandoned in his quest for control. Yet the darkness is relentless. The sun's influence claws at him, refusing to release its hold. Anakin's internal struggle reaches its peak, as he battles not only the Jedi before him, but the darkness within himself. Ahsoka, sensing his struggle, reaches out one last time, urging him to remember his true purpose as the Chosen One. Her words strike deep, resonating with the part of Anakin that has long been buried beneath layers of anger and ambition. In a final act of defiance, Anakin summons the last of his strength to break free from the sun's lingering hold. He realizes that his vision of peace can never be achieved through the dark side. Summoning the courage to face himself, he lets go of the hatred that has defined him, allowing the light side to resurface. The sun's influence fades, dissipating as Anakin reconnects with the Force in a way he hasn't felt since his days as a Jedi. Anakin, weakened and filled with remorse, turns to Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and the remaining Jedi. He acknowledges the destruction he has caused, knowing that redemption may be beyond him, but vowing to make amends. In that moment, he pledges to fight alongside them, to restore the peace he once swore to protect. Anakin's decision signals the end of the darkness that once ruled him, as he finally accepts the balance within himself. The galaxy, still scarred by his actions, begins a slow process of healing as Anakin's regime collapses. Those who once lived in fear under his rule start to rebuild, guided by the hope that has returned with the Jedi. Anakin, humbled and burdened by his past, becomes a wanderer, dedicating himself to helping the people he once terrorized, seeking to restore the balance he nearly destroyed. In this alternate universe, Anakin's escape from Mortis with the sun nearly plunged the galaxy into eternal darkness. But through the unwavering resilience of Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and the Jedi, he was given a second chance to fulfill his role as the Chosen One, not through conquest, but through understanding and balance. His story remains a testament to the power of redemption and the unbreakable bond between light and dark, proving that even the deepest fall into darkness can still find a path back to the light.